Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk podcast in association with Viper Goalkeeping. We've got a super special episode today. We've got two guests as we welcome England kitmen Pat Frost and his assistant Neil Jones to discuss all things Three Lions and probably much, much more. But first and foremost, Pat, how are you doing? Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you.
And Neil, how are you?
Yeah, also good, yeah, in sunny Shrewsbury.
I was going to say sunny South Shields, but it's definitely not. Definitely not in the north at the minute. I think first things first, before we delve deep into England stuff, that summer in Russia and all sorts of stuff, I'll come to you first, Pat. For people who maybe are not fully aware of what the role involves, what is a kitman? What do you do? What is your regular day?
Well, our main aim is to make sure all the players have got the proper attire for training and when they're chilling around the hotel and stuff like that, and to make sure basically the head coach, the coaches have got all the equipment for training.
What about you, Neil? How do you class your day-to-day stuff?
Yes, it's basically what Pat's saying. But when people need it, we've got it there ready for them at that sort of right time, because they virtually turn up on camp with nothing.
Yeah,
toothbrush and some, wash bag and stuff like that. The rest we provide. You know,
out of all the players you've worked with, who's the most unprepared then? Which one do you have to kind of basically baby a little bit and make sure they've got the toothbrush, the shirt, the tie, everything?
Is that a question to me?
Both.
I'm going to let you answer it.
Yeah, I'll let Pat.
You can drop yourself in it.
Yeah. I don't. Do you know what? I think they know we provide everything for them, so they don't make a massive effort anyway to come with the right sort of stuff. But yeah, certainly down to the men, we actually provide underpants as well. So they literally turn up with nothing if they don't want to. And we even supply toothbrushes and toothpaste and stuff like that when they forget that. So They never forget the PlayStations or the phones.
Or the headphones, yeah, absolutely. Neil, just touching on you, I believe, I could be incorrect with this and you can certainly put me right, but you've been involved with England across all levels since about 2010?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So how did your involvement begin? Because I assume you had I know you had a history before that, but just for people listening, so what is your background and how did it come England in 2010?
I'm looking forward to this.
No background at all, really, in football, other than football fan, football mad from a kid. I worked, my wife actually, we had a contract cleaning company, and in about 2006, there was a recession going on. So we wasn't doing great. I needed some extra work. So I'd obviously knew Pat a long time. So he just got into transporting kit around Europe for the England youth teams. Mm-hmm. And I sort of approached Pat to see if there was any work or anything. And he's like, yeah, come along and start. So I started doing that, transporting the kit. And then I started, they asked me to be a kit man. So I think my first gig was something like the under-16 boys or something like that, which had played like Jordan Pickford in and Raheem Sterling, that sort of age group. And then it just progressed from there, really. I went across to the women's, done their youth teams, and just sort of built my way up that way.
Yeah. And Pat,
so no football background at all.
So you've got obviously a background together, but Pat, as far as I'm aware, you're with West Brom, you're a West Brom fan, it's no secret. But what's your background? What's your history? How did you get all the way to where you're on now?
Well, there's a great saying in life, being in the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. And going back to what Neil said about transport, in 2004, I got my own little transport business, only a couple of vans, it was more curry work. And I had a phone call to see if I could take some stuff to Sweden. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. I just said yes, obviously. And it turned out it was some football kit for the under-19 girls. And I just hit it off with the head coach. The kitmen weren't really on the scene in those days at international level, other than senior men and maybe the 21s. And I was out there for a week and I'd got nothing to do. She says, well, listen, if you've got nothing to do, why don't you stay and help? And I just hit it off with the head coach and it went on from there for me, really. So I did my apprenticeship with the female youth squads and worked up pretty much like Neil did, but maybe just started a couple of years earlier.
So who was the head coach at the time that he hit it off with?
There was a lady called Maureen Marley, who is now, you all know Maureen Marley, of course, if you know anything about women's football.
Absolutely.
So I've done some World Cups with Mo, European Championships. I was in Belarus, and I think it was the 10-year anniversary not so long ago about the under-19s winning in Belarus with Tony Duggan, Jordan Nobbs, Izzy Christiansen, Ellen White, who've all gone on to play for the seniors, of course.
Talking of, obviously, the role of a kitman, I suppose, because you've both been involved in it, I'll throw this one to you first, Pat, and then obviously Neil come in afterwards if you can. Has the role of a kitman changed then since the days, like your first game up until your last game that you've just been to before COVID? Has the role changed very much as things kind of, do you adapt and do different things? Do you have to have new things prepared, or has it kind of stayed the same all the way along the line?
Do you know what? It's probably stayed the same for us as a role as a kitman and a job description, but what has changed is the amount of equipment and kit we now take with us. When I first started, for instance, I think there was maybe 6 or 7 members of staff with a youth team. That's now doubled. Sports science has come to the fore, and we'll take a lot more stuff for them, with satellite navigation systems in their vests and stuff like that. So in that respect, it's changed because we now take more stuff with us, but the role itself still hasn't. When I first started in 2004, you made sure that everyone had got clean kit every day for training and for matches. We still do that now. We just take a bit more with us.
Yeah, got you. Obviously, it's not just a senior team I think you're involved in with Neil, because obviously we touched on before the women's team and stuff like that. What teams do you predominantly both get involved with? I'll throw that one to you first, Neil. What is your role at the moment? Do you get across the board, or is it just a senior team currently?
No, it's just now the senior team, really. I still pack up for the ladies football team, and I pack up for the senior men's team, but it's just that demanding, and there was a lot of crossover. So I think you're the same as well, Pat. We only do the senior men now. We'll fill in now and again if asked to do the youth teams, but no, it's just the senior men.
It's funny you mentioned before about kitmen and stuff. Sorry to interject, but yeah, obviously I'm a Sunderland fan. So John Cook's obviously been there the best part of like 20, 25 years. And one thing I found quite interesting, I'm probably going back a little bit to a question I asked earlier, was your role or the way that you got into being a kitman, both of you really. Whereas John Cook was obviously former Sunderland and has just stayed there sort of forever. Can you train to be a kitman, like you said, because it sounds like you've got so many demands across the board? Can you train to be a kitman, or is it, again, like Pat said, right place, right time?
You definitely need to train, but you've got to train on the job. You can't. I wouldn't be able to tell you how to be a kitman. You've got a lot of you sense of situations, and it's just time served and experience and making mistakes. Yeah, it's the only way to learn. I've made loads of mistakes along the way, and I'm sure Pat has as well, and that's the best way to learn. Just no. He said he hasn't made a mistake. But no, that is the best way to learn, just making mistakes.
I think that obviously I was doing my research and looking at certain things that's happened, and I think the most famous story probably came from Pat, but you're both involved with it, was the Harry Maguire shirt situation. And I'm jumping far too far forward here, but for people who haven't heard the story, I'll come to you, Pat. What was the situation with Harry Maguire's shirt before that quarterfinal?
Yeah, you're smiling while you're saying that, but I can tell you now at the time it was very stressful. And it might seem only a minor thing to anyone who's not involved in football or ever been in a dressing room. But let me tell you now, at the time, it was like, I think I broke out into a sweat while I'm trying to get it sorted. We was just unlucky, I think, because the shirts came printed with names on the back, and we would then put the decal on for the game and the numbers on. So we weren't making up shirts from scratch. They'd come, and it may have been sized wrong, but literally after they come in from the warm-up, I think it's the game against Sweden, the quarter-final maybe. I think it was. They'd come in from the warm-up. So there's only 5 or 6 minutes left now, and by the time they've put their boots on, they've taken their sweaty warm-up T-shirt on. Their match shirt's probably the last thing they put on just before they put their anthem jacket on, literally 10 minutes before kick-off. And Harry's put his shirt on. I'm running around doing bits and pieces. One of us would be in the dressing room. One of us would be out on the pitch gathering all the balls. And we take it in turns. This time, I definitely drew the short straw because Neil's probably minding his own business, picking the balls up out of the pit. And Harry has said, I won't tell you exact words, but it was something along the lines of, Frosty, you've printed me a shirt big enough for my granddad. I need to swap it. So I've now got to find a shirt. The press is all set up ready, to be fair. And, we're quite organised. So we've got numbers, we've got decals, everything's out. But you've still got to try and get the measurements right. You've got to make sure it's done properly. And Hickman, because at this time the dressing room's quite quiet, a lot of other people have heard what he said. So all of a sudden the focus now is all looking at me. I'm thinking, come on, Neil, come through the doors now. And I think he eventually bowled in with the balls on his shoulder and stuff like that. But, when everyone's watching, and even the head coach has said something like, you've done well there, you're under a bit of pressure. And I think he's put it on literally as he's walking out the dressing room door. So it was actually a little bit of a stressful moment there.
It's funny as well when I was reading about it. I mean, obviously not funny, like you say, really, really stressful. But we had Andy Campbell, obviously used to play for Middlesbrough on the show. And he had a situation where he had something very, very similar happened where I think he made his debut at Anfield. And the shirt that he'd been given had the wrong number and wrong name and stuff on the back, the wrong spelling on the back or something like that. And the ref was like, look, you can't really come on with like your name spelled incorrectly. So he had to jump into the crowd. We're talking like mid-90s, late 90s here. He had to jump into the crowd, get a shirt off someone in the stadium because they hadn't brought enough. And then in the background, they had to go and get that printed within like literally seconds. And it took them sort of 2 or 3 minutes to get on the pitch. It's surprising how... not a regular occurrence, but the pressure that must create. Since that's happened, have you always made sure you've got like 3 or 4 shirts so you never have to go through that again?
Well, to be fair, I will let Neil answer this before. And we do always have a spare shirt for them. Mm-hmm. We have a bag of blood shirts and stuff like that, but it's not straightforward. So I'll let Neil answer that one if you don't mind.
Go for it, Neil.
Well, in our defence, we didn't do the wrong shirt. He's just that day decided he wasn't a size. He wanted to change to a different size.
Yeah.
So there was nothing we could sort of do about that. So the spare shirt that we had ready, which was all perfect, was still in his mind too big for him. So we've had to sort of change size. So there was nothing really we can do about that other than that. And we did have it's only because of the time restraints that we had that created the massive pressure, because we had the blank shirts, the name blocks, the numbers, the decals. It was just that it's that sort of pressure cooker moment just before they're about to go out on the pitch, and other people might be sort of asking for stuff as well, because they just leave things to the last minute. Some of it's ritual and stuff like that. And like Pat says, it was really hot as well. So the last thing they wanted to do was put their shirts on an anthem jacket. They was just leaving it till the death. And then, of course, that's when we had a bit of a panic. But, we got through it. It was fine.
Yeah,
didn't he score? He scored in that game as well, didn't he?
He did. And we mentioned it. We actually said to him, we'll have to give you a wrong shirt, even though we didn't give him a wrong shirt. We actually said, we'll give you a wrong shirt again next time. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you're right.
His first half as well. It was that massive head of his just banging in the top corner, wasn't it, with a header? Yeah. Before I go on to the World Cup, which obviously we're going to have to go on to, because what a fabulous summer that was. But as I touched on before, Neil, you've worked with the women's team in the World Cup in Canada, obviously the World Cup in France. Very much so the World Cup in France is something I watch, and I know that you sort of went away with them. Now, for someone from the Northeast that works in women's football within the Northeast, but is also a Sunderland fan, you've got the likes of course, Lucy Bronze, but Jill Scott, Beth Mead. There's a big, big Sunderland contingent there and a Northeast contingent. Jordan Nobbs, you sort of touched on before. Canada was great, and I really felt like it promoted women's football a lot. But on top of that, you've also got a huge push that came from the World Cup that came afterwards in France in 2019, because you've got household names now, like not just in America, Rapinoe and stuff like that. You've got over here, Lucy Bronze is really well known. But how was the experience for you? Because it's a World Cup, but it did feel really significant for women's football. But how was your experience?
Canada was just unreal, really, because that sort of came from nowhere. Yeah. Canada, it was just, and it was obviously Mark Sampson. Yeah. He sort of took over the team there, and Lee Kendall and people like that. And we just, it was just amazing, the whole experience of it. We was unlucky, if you remember, in the semi-final against Japan as well. Laura Bassett, that sort of own goal last minute, couldn't do anything about it. And then just to go and beat, because we hadn't really beat any big, the big nations, the Germanys, the France. So the significance in beating them in the semi-final as well, it just proved that we can go and beat anybody.
Yeah.
You know, we come close before, but so not just to win the bronze, but to actually beat Germany in a sort of a major tournament was amazing.
So
that was good.
There?
Yeah.
Because I think you should tell the story, because I love this story, because I'm a fan now, even women's, men's, whatever, I'm a fan.
Same.
And Neil tells a little story about what Mark Sampson said in the dressing room before the Germany game.
Yeah, I genuinely can't remember the detail of it, but he's got us all in a huddle and we're all coming out of that so emotionally. He's a great talker, Mark Sampson is. I don't know if you've ever heard him speak or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's sort of got us all in and we've all come out of there knowing we're going to win this. You know, none of us had any doubts that we was going to beat Germany, and we'd never, you know, we hadn't beaten under Mark's reign, certainly, and we hadn't even come close. But we just come out of that dressing room thinking we're going to win this. And we did. And it was just unbelievable experience. And like you say, the women's football since then pushed on massive, didn't it? There's loads of girls playing the game now. Some of the Premier League clubs didn't even have women's teams back then, but I think they all have now. I don't know, was it Tottenham or Man United? Was they one of the last ones to have it?
United.
I can't remember,
United, I think.
but they've all got it now. And then the same with France. France was good. And America, they was better than us, but you know, we could have still won that. Did you watch the game?
I did, yeah. The penalty, obviously, that penalty goes in.
Absolutely everything in that game. I don't think there was any major incident in football that didn't happen in that game. You had the Ellen White, the VAR goal ruled out and stuff like that. And then it was just a shame. I think that was against Sweden in the semi-final. I think it was sort of after the Lord Mayor's show, really, so they couldn't reach the heights of what they wanted. We was unlucky in that because obviously we missed out on Jordan Nobbs as well. She got injured, so I wasn't able to come. But
huge miss.
It's just an amazing experience. And Lucy Bronze, like you say, that 4 years, she's as good as anything in the world, isn't she? So
absolutely.
That goal she scored against Norway in Canada was unbelievable. And
from
she
a right
scored
back.
another. Yeah, I know. Yeah,
ridiculous.
Yeah, she's. Unbelievable, Lucy Bronze.
Could you feel at home because I felt like the support really took off. Like for someone who'd been involved in women's football sort of just before that and took an interest to where I am now. I remember at home, it was like my dad who'd never watched women's football, my brother who'd never watched women's football. We all got like cans in and sat and watched like the quarters, the semis, all of the games. Could you feel that level of support from home? Could you feel it was almost like just a standard normal World Cup as it should be?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. No, it was really good, and that was great kick-off times as well, if I remember rightly.
Yeah,
certainly
they were.
And the Canada one as well. We were sort of the national team, men's national team, wasn't doing great, was they, at the time? So I think people were almost latching onto the women's game as well. You know, the old cliches, like, at least they try and all this sort of thing. So it just sort of came at the right time. But that France one, it was just, we were seeing pictures back from home. And like you say, it was just the pubs with the flags and the singing and the cheering when they scored. So, it was, unbelievable.
And that America game as well. And I quite liked this. I liked that it had a little bit of needle in it as well. It's the first time I'd seen a proper bit of needle during that. And it was obviously the Alex Morgan with the teacup moment and all that kind of stuff. And I think we were very different in personality. I mean, I don't know any of the girls, don't get me wrong. But we seemed like very different personality to the Americans that day. And it had a bit of needle about it. And it was kind of, you felt people getting angry about it, which is quite good. It kind of felt like as it always should have done. But fantastic tournament. And I think with England, obviously Phil, there was a bit of a sticky moment afterwards, and obviously Phil's announced he's leaving and things like that. But when you look at like the players we've got in that team, there's so many good young players, and the experienced players are still only 28, 29. I mean, Jill Scott, 31, 32, and vastly experienced, and still got plenty left in her as well. So people talk about the England men's team going on to maybe win the Euros, which would have been this year. There's no reason that the England women's team can't do exactly the same, isn't there?
I totally agree. And that's what my because my swan song was the Sweden game, actually. Yeah. That's when I finished and sort of went across, and I had to sort of, they got me a nice gift and I had to stand up and say a few words. And that's exactly what I said. It's not if they're going to win a tournament, it's just when. It's just a matter of time. They just need everything to happen. bit of luck, and they will win a major tournament. There's no doubt about that. And the amount of girls that they've got playing the game now since Canada, really, that was a sort of the legacy that left. And it's just the normal now, isn't it? Before, you'd sort of, a few years ago, be like, what, your daughter plays football? Now it's like, of course she plays football. She's at school, and that's what boys and girls play, football.
And it's interesting that they've all got idols as well. Like, obviously working with Middlesbrough, the 16, 17-year-olds coming through, I can quite easily ask them for the programme, who's your favourite player? And it stopped being Ronaldo and Messi. It started being Jill Scott and Lucy Bronze, and that's such a huge step up as well. And before I move on to sort of you, Pat, as well, and we'll go into the sort of World Cup and a few other things, I just wanted to ask Neil, from your side, I think Phil Neville, rightly or wrongly, he's probably come in for a bit of praise, bit of criticism, both sides. You've someone that's worked with him and sees him in the dressing room. How do you find Phil Neville as a manager?
Brilliant. Yeah, really, really good. He's like Gareth as well. They're just good people. They're very humble people.
Yeah.
They're not like, I don't know if it's a new breed of managers coming through. You hear stories of some of the old managers that used to be bullies and that sort of stuff, and not so. These are just nice people. That, for instance, if you're queuing up for food at lunchtime, they're not going straight to the front because they're the manager or anything like that. They're just queuing up behind you. And it just makes you want to do well for them. But yeah, that humility, and obviously they've had a lot through the managers they've worked for, and they've just passed it on. And they're very good at, Pat will agree with this as well, if they think any of the players are putting on you or anything like that, they'd be the first to say, have a bit of respect. These lads work hard for you, show the respect back to them. So they're very good for us. We could go to them if we felt there was a problem, and they'd back us up.
Do you have to prepare the waistcoats for Phil and Gareth? I always wondered that.
No, that just came from nowhere, didn't it? I think the story was, didn't he say it was hot or something? So we went for the waistcoat look or something, yeah.
It's a smart look, to be fair. It's definitely different. It's definitely a smart look. I'll throw this one at you, Pat. We've talked about a few experiences that you've had, and we've discussed the Maguire moment, but what's like the funniest or most memorable experience you've had during your time at England?
Well, it's not funny, but it's similar to the Harry Maguire one, actually. I was kitman for the England under-20s when they won the World Cup in Korea.
Yeah.
And Freddie, a lad from North East, Freddie Woodman, saved a penalty.
The Newcastle goalkeeper.
And I had such a bad 5 minutes, I didn't even know there was a penalty. I hadn't even seen. We got a lad called Dom Solanke playing up front, who was playing unbelievably well. He was man of the match by a mile, and he was just out of this world. And after about 15 minutes or 20 minutes, he got a bit of blood on his shirt. So we had to change it at half time. And for whatever reason, I hadn't got any blank shirts, but I'd got 3 blood shirts I got 3 match shirts, all decaled up for every single player. Because nowadays, normally, if you get a head injury with blood, they don't stop on, they bring them off.
Yeah.
But Dominic's was maybe just a scratch or something, but obviously they're not allowed to play with blood on anything. And then into the second half, I think the wound had reopened or something. So I've had to change his shirt again. So I'm now trying to find his shirt from the first half, because I know I haven't got a flipping England shirt for him to put on. And I've had for 5 minutes, I'm running in and out like a maniac. And in that 5 minutes, they've missed a penalty. But because there was no, I think it was against Venezuela. There wasn't thousands of Venezuelans in the crowd and stuff like that. So I didn't know, there was no crowd indication to say there'd been a penalty or missed it. And it was only about 20 minutes after the game when everyone's saying, oh, Fred this, Freddie that, Freddie this. I'm like, I know he's done well, but, what about Dominic Solanke? He was out of this world. Yeah, but he saved a penalty. I'm like, did he? I didn't even know he'd saved a penalty. It was one of those that you just get so engrossed in what you're trying to do to keep everything happy on the pitch. I didn't know there'd been a penalty and we'd saved it till about 20 minutes after the final whistle.
And that is the thing, isn't it? I mean, I'm not the most experienced. I've only been involved in sort of match day media sort of things for the best part of a year. But sometimes it isn't like being a fan. You try your best, but sometimes you're so concentrated on, for me, it would be making sure I've got the angles right, I've got the filming right, no one's in the way of filming the goal because I've only got the one camera. You've obviously got the shirts and stuff like that. I think in a way, people sometimes forget that you are so concentrated on stuff. Sometimes it's nice just to be a fan, isn't it? Do you quite enjoy sitting back and watching games occasionally, just like now and again?
Yeah, when we were at the World Cup, actually, we were only allowed one of us on the bench because of numbers and what have you.
Yeah.
So when you're on the bench, whatever happens, you've got to make sure you're watching to do your job all the time. When you're sat in the technical seats behind you and you know you can't. So I'm in the technical seat and Neil's on the bench. There's absolutely nothing I can do to help Neil because you can't go down there. FIFA don't allow it. There's only a certain number. So you can sit there and you can watch it and you can jump up when they score and you can sing the Harry Kane songs and you can join in with the Gareth Southgate song. When you're on the bench, you can't do that.
No, that's very true, actually. Talking about the fact that you can only have one on the bench, did you switch then between games and stuff like that, or did you kind of have one person that sat there all the time?
Go on now.
Yeah, we decided from the start we'll just switch it.
Yeah.
So Pat did the first one, and then we just took it in turns, and it was just the way.
Because there's nothing better, by the way, than on the bench. And when you're a fan, and I know you're getting paid for it, to be stood there in that line singing the national anthem, representing your country, because that's what you're doing. Yeah. And you've got thousands of fans singing the national anthem. 20 foot down the line, Gareth Southgate's there, the players are there, and you're sat there, you're stood there with your arms around them singing the national anthem. There's no better feeling. I promise you there isn't.
I imagine it's especially in I'm saying the semi-final, but the quarters, the first game, because obviously the Tunisia game was fantastic as well. But I think sometimes I've watched England on the TV, or I've obviously been to old Wembley. I've since been to new Wembley. I've been to a few England games, and the hairs do sometimes stand up on the back of your neck, don't they? Imagine when you're that close to the action, and these guys are your mates now. And I understand that you won't just see them as just footballers. They're people that you're working with and working for. So you're kind of standing there effectively with your mates, living out what everyone would want to do, but at the same time, you've got these lads that you want to see do so well on a pitch, and it's the world's biggest stage, isn't it? There's no bigger stage than the World Cup. Do you have to kind of almost remove yourself from how much of a goosebumps moment that is? Because I can't imagine doing it. I'm just talking about it and thinking, wow, imagine how great that must be. So to you, Pat, do you sometimes have to remove yourself from the enormity of it because you'll just freak out?
Yeah, you do actually. And it's difficult not to do it smiling from ear to ear. You know, when you've just won the quarter-final and the game against, who did we beat in the penalty shootout? Colombia.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in the dressing room after you've won your first penalty shootout at a World Cup, or you're in the huddle for the Gareth Southgate pep talk 10 minutes before kickoff. You know, we know how lucky we are. Everybody you know would love to do what we do. We know that, but to be there, it's just it's difficult to put in words actually how lucky we are and how much we enjoy it.
Yeah,
and in fact, the last game I went to. And this is, again, what Neil was saying about how good these coaches are. Gareth, before we get off the plane, Gareth there shaking everybody's hands, thanking you and what have you. And I I just whispered in his ear, don't ever sack me. I want to do this forever.
Yeah. And I'd feel very much the same way. I think everyone can completely envy but empathise with understand exactly what you're saying. Sorry, talking about Southgate, obviously I asked you just before, Neil, I'll throw this one to you, Pat, again, because obviously we've had a bit of discussion on it. But what I quite like about Gareth Southgate, now it's difficult for me because Sam Allardyce was obviously the man that left Sunderland, and since that's happened, Sunderland have fell through a million trapdoors. So a little bit of anger that he went to England for one game, but then Southgate came in, and almost because Sam Allardyce was the choice, I think a lot of people said with Southgate, it's just the choice of this or that, the other, it's just an obvious choice. But he gradually became this really strong, progressive coach that it's basically turned England from being, well, it would be nice if we got to the quarterfinals, to still kind of the anguish that we didn't actually get the final. And we feel like we could win the Euros, and we genuinely feel it for the first time in ages. As someone who works with him and has been in the pep talks and has been around Southgate, how bright is England's future with Gareth in charge?
Well, listen, they don't pay me enough money to decide who's the best bloke to manage it. But all I can say is now at the moment, why would you ever want to change it? I will say this, Gareth's got a good backup with coaches as well. His assistant, Steve Holland, he does a lot of talking in the dressing rooms. That bloke is unbelievable. Yeah. I listen to him implicitly at half-time, and the amount of things he says at half-time that he tells them that's going to happen in the second half, that does happen in the second half, these people are, they're unbelievable. And he has got a good backup, but as far as I'm concerned, why would you want to change anything at the moment? You wouldn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels, as an England fan, it feels really bright at the moment. It's like you're looking across the pitch. My girlfriend's Scottish, so she's on the opposite side. She doesn't feel that bright about her future with her national team. But our national team, obviously, I look through the sides that we've got, and I look through the people that are in the front three, and you could pick 6 to 7 players that could realistically get in that team now and to be in that position. But at the same time, this has all seemed to blossom since Gareth has came in. And for the first time in, since 1996? To you as an England fan and me as an England fan, it feels the most together the country's been from a national team perspective in a long, long time, doesn't it? I'll throw that to you, Pat.
Yeah, it does. And do you know what? Gareth was involved in the last time it was probably like this in 96, so he knows all about it. And regards of players coming through, don't forget we won the Under-17s World Cup. We won the Under-20s World Cup. So we knew there was loads of talent there. It's just now, we're almost, I'm not saying we're overrun with it, but we've got a lot to choose from, haven't we? We can't wait to see the next squad.
Yeah, there's almost too much choice. In a sense, it's like you look through across the board, there's just so much choice in the side. It's so many riches there. It's ridiculous, really. And we really should be pushing to sort of win the Euros. And I really did fancy us this year, but unfortunately COVID happened. With Gareth as well, and again, I'll throw this one at you, Pat, but he does seem like quite a quiet, conservative, sort of considered bloke, shall we say. But is he more vocal with the players in and around the dressing room? Obviously, when we won against Colombia and the kind of the two-fist moments and the shouting of the come on, and it's kind of real anger and real kind of passion there with him. So do you think, although he's considered a quiet and considered bloke, is he more vocal with the players? Has he got that kind of passion that we saw that day within the dressing room walls?
Well, you've clearly seen his passion. I'm not going to lie, I've never seen him raise his voice. I've never heard him raise his voice anywhere. Everything is measured. Everything is, it's why the players love him as well.
Yeah.
It's not just the staff, it's the players. And I don't need to tell you what the fans think of him.
Yeah, we love him. Yeah, let's be honest. He's got his own song. I can't remember the last England manager that had his own song. I might be wrong with that, but I don't remember an England manager that had a song for a long time.
Think of one.
Might have been a few, but maybe not pleasant ones. I just can't think of what they are. In regards to Jordan Pickford, I'll throw this one at you, Neil. But Jordan Pickford, someone I saw on his league debut at Arsenal it was his FA Cup debut, his full debut for Sunderland. Someone I've watched come through the academy, and thing is with Jordan, I rate him really highly, and I know recently he's come in for a lot of criticism. As a bloke and as someone who's like a proper Mackem, I love him. Because you see that character, you see that swagger, and I know Kevin Ball, who he came through with at Sunderland at the academy, and everyone that knows him speaks really, really, really highly of him. But recently he has come in for a little bit of criticism. From what I can gather, he's the kind of person that will take any criticism on board very constructively, but has got enough swagger to believe in himself. But what's your opinion of Jordan as a character and as a person?
Careful.
No. As a character, he's probably just like me and Pat. He's just a normal bloke. He's just a normal lad who's got an amazing talent.
Yeah,
he hasn't got any angle or edge about him. Pat will tell you, he's so. You can have a joke with him, you can have a laugh with him, but he's very, very observant. He doesn't miss a trick. If me and Pat's got a pair of shorts on too big, he'll notice and he'll dig you out about it. But he's the one where, because we always have to meet the players and that when they come, so they give us their boots and their trainers and their flip flops. Mine and Pat's faces both light up when his car pulls up and he's getting out, because that smile on his face, and you're going to have a good crack with him for a few minutes. But yeah, that's the best thing I could say, or the most honest thing. He's just a normal bloke.
Yeah,
just the first thing he'll say is, West Brom are rubbish, because he knows we both follow Albion. But don't forget, as a Sunderland fan, and even if you're not a Sunderland fan, if you're a Newcastle fan, you'll respect this. He's bought his own flag to the World Cup with Sunderland on it. And I've had to put it up next to my West Brom flag. It doesn't matter who you support, when you're showing passion like that about and your own hometown, it doesn't matter if you follow Newcastle, Middlesbrough or whatever, they're going to respect that.
Yeah.
Because he wants his Sunderland flag up.
I would say they say this about most of them, but I don't think Jordan Pickford's changed. the success and, everything he's got with football, I still think he's the same bloke. Personally, I don't know about you, Pat. He hasn't changed, has he?
No, do you know what? He can send you a message after training. Where are you? Why? What do you want? Oh, nothing. I've got you a can of Coke and a Kit Kat in the kit room. Stuff like that. Because he knows I like Coke and chocolate.
With Pickford, like I say, we seen him as a Sunderland fan. I've seen him coming through, and I've always rated him really highly. And for me, 30 million was never enough. And I know people disagree with me on that. And I know there's been things said about him and stuff like that. For me, he's still England number one. And I don't know how biased that is, but I was always curious about his character because he's such a supremely confident lad as well, though, isn't he? Some people say he's overconfident, but I mean, you look at what he's done. He's the first goalkeeper to pretty much win us a World Cup quarterfinal. Well, any World Cup shootout, actually, come to think of it. And for me, I don't know if just because I've seen him for so long, that was the first shootout where I thought, well, the keeper we've got in goal can save a penalty, and he's confident enough to not worry about things in the past. Did you feel the same way? And also, this one at you, Neil. Did you feel the same way with that shootout? Like with Pickford in goal, we stood more of a chance than probably we ever had because it's just something about him, isn't there?
Exactly the same. He's just confident. He just backs himself, and they do a lot of work as well. I don't know if I think it was highlighted on it or mentioned about they'd done all their homework on the penalty takers.
Yeah,
I think he got it on his water bottle, hadn't he? And he
that
knows
was right.
that.
Yeah.
But he's just supremely confident. So I was like you. I thought, we've always got a chance with him in goal, and it was just great, wasn't it, for him?
Not only that, he takes penalties in shootouts as well. And
I was just about to say he wouldn't be frightened of taking one.
He would have wanted to be in the first 5 taken against Colombia. I promise you now. He'll be like, I won't try and do his accent, but I can see him saying it. Well, I'll fucking take one. Don't worry about that.
What was the
coaches have already said in the past that goalkeepers should take more penalties because they probably concentrate more on their distribution and exactly where they want to place a ball. They should be best to be putting them in the top corner and whatever, shouldn't they, really?
Was it the Switzerland game where he took one? I think it was, I don't know if it was the winning penalty, but he just stepped up and it was like the most supremely confident penalty right in the bottom corner away from the keeper's reach. And again, it's probably because I'm a Sunderland fan. I never doubted it, but I know a lot of people were going, keeper's up. He'll score it, no problem. And the confidence that he had, like swaggering up, taking it, and the confidence he had swaggering up when he'd scored it was just like, there's nothing like him. What I'm curious about, and obviously it worked out, but probably the most famous Sunderland Academy graduate and the current player of the year, which I'm sure he will be across the board with all the medals, Jordan Henderson. Another player I've seen come up as a fan, another player that seemed destined for the top, and he is destined for the top, and vice captain at the moment. Obviously, Harry's the main captain, but for a moment, it looked like he was the man that was going to be the Gareth Southgate, shall we say, the man who missed the penalty. And then Jordan Pickford saves those 2 penalties and bails him out. So from a Mackem to a Mackem, that was the best story for us because it was like the Mackem bailed out the Mackem and we still got through. But I'll throw this to you, Pat. Was there a little bit of a thanks very much, Jordan, from Pickford to Henderson in the dressing room after that?
Well, did you see how Jordan reacted when Eric scored?
Yes.
He's not gone running off. He's dropped to his knees in relief because that would have affected Jordan, I'm sure. But Jordan and they're close anyway. So they're actually good mates. But another Henderson story, by the way, against Sweden in the quarter-final. I think he's come off on something like 82 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Give or take 10 minutes to go. And he sat down on the bench and the doctors asked him a question. The physios asked him a question. The sports science has asked him a question. Only, are you okay? Do you need a drink? Do you need some ice? Something like that. He'd given that much for his country. He couldn't speak. He hadn't got an ounce of breath left. And and I've done it in the past. I used to be always a fan following England and just say in my day it might have been Peter Beardsley or Gary Lineker or David Platt. Philip Hinek, he's not even trying. Don't ever say that about Jordan Henderson. He came off that pitch. He could not breathe. He couldn't speak. He'd given that much for his country. And if someone always asked me about what your memories of the World Cup, I always mention that. It was unbelievable. He just could not speak.
Since that tournament as well, we knew Henderson was good at that point, but since then he's gone on to become the best player in the Premier League officially. Won the Champions League, won the Premier League. I'll throw this one to both of you actually, and you can go in whichever way you want. But were you surprised in any way, shape, size, or form at the fact that he continued that progression, knowing him as you do and knowing him as the professional and the person? Is there any level of surprise at how high of the game he's reached?
I'll answer first. Yeah, I'm not, because he just works hard as anybody else, if not harder than anyone else. He just doesn't stop. And even, was it Spain, Pat? I can't remember now. Was he banned but still wanted to come? He come as a fan, didn't he?
Remember? Didn't he get a second booking or something, or he couldn't play?
Yeah, but did he? I don't think he travelled with the team. I can't remember now, but I just remember when we beat Spain, he come down by the bench.
Yeah, he'd stayed as maybe he'd flown his missus and kids over because he didn't want to miss the game,
wasn't there? And it was just. Do you remember that he was in Seville, wasn't it? And we won 3-2. But I just remember him, and he was just in his civilian clothes down by the bench because he wants it as much. He's just as big a fan as we are. He wants to win, but he's a true leader, any Pat.
Yeah, he's got an aura about him. When you walk into the, you've all seen The Last American Werewolf in London when they walk into the slaughtered lamb, it goes quiet. When Jordan walks in the dressing room, people know.
Yeah. And I think with Henderson as well, we always rate him really highly at Sunderland, but there was some people who thought, he was overpriced at 16 million. How much do you think you'd pay for him now? 100, 200? It's like
he's worth a bit more than 16, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think we undersold ourselves a little bit there. One question that always going to be asked, and I'll throw this one to you, Pat. Who's the best? Who's got the best patter? Who's got the best banter in the dressing room out of all the lads?
Well, there's actually quite a few, but Jordan Pickford will be up there. Marcus and Jesse, when they're together, you could say they're a nightmare, but they're a nightmare in the best possible way, if you know what I mean. Because those two are very infectious. They're always laughing. Jordan, Harry, they're all good lads. Jadon Sancho, Maddison's a pain in the backside in a really nice way because he'll walk past you and give you a little dig in the ribs or something,
Talking about sort of players in the dressing room, you've mentioned Jesse Lingard there. He's someone who over the past few years seems to have had so much criticism. And for me, he was one of the better players in the World Cup. And what I quite liked, I watched a video the other day when he was speaking with, I think it was Maya Jama, and it was based on the Heads Up campaign that the FA are doing. And he was chatting about his life and obviously how there's been more difficult periods in his life over the past year at home and how it's affected him. With Jesse Lingard, I think there was a lot of stuff said about his personality, which was unfair because it was based on 30-second videos of him just being a bit daft. How good of a lad is Jesse Lingard, and do you think he'll bounce back from what's been a difficult year, shall we say?
We love having him there. He's a great bloke to have. Because
he's already starting to bounce back, and he's showing a bit of form as well at the minute. So
yeah,
and he's the kind of bloke that if you didn't have him in your 23-man squad, you'd want him to come along anyway. Just one of those blokes.
There seems to be a real unity within the team. Like, when we're talking about players there and we're talking about like relationships between them, you've got Henderson and Pickford, you've got Rashford and Jesse Lingard. There's players across the pitch that build up a relationship. And I think we touched on this before about sort of 30 minutes ago. Fans, manager, players, youth teams, under 21s, under 17s, under 19s, they all seem to be a real togetherness at England at the moment. Do you think that's what's pushing us so far forward, and not just the quality we've got, but the unity that we've got together in the team? I'll throw that to you, Neil.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, a lot of them have started from under 16s, under 17s, under 18s. So they've got used to that sort of England ethic, if you like. But it's definitely the friendships as well that's making a big difference. We've got a lot in our dressing room. I think Mason Mount and Declan are really good friends. Jess and Mark's are good friends. But yeah, I think that's I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but yeah, that's giving us the strength at the minute. Definitely. I've got a blank now. Go on, you get in there, Pat.
Don't be shy now. So it doesn't just happen overnight. By the way, it's something that's And for instance, the physio at England, a lad called Steve Kemp, and he sets his medical room up, and every evening it's set up so that there's a massive screen, there's some sofas in there, so when the lads are having a massage, they'll all be watching a film, and sometimes you can have 15, 18 players in there all at the same time. This is 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, all sat there just chatting, watching a film all together and stuff like that, and all that sort of stuff helps.
Absolutely. One thing I did want to touch on, I kind of don't want to, but I kind of do at the same time because it's all experience, and ultimately it was some fantastic moments in it. But the semi-final, the first question I've got to ask, I'll ask you then, Pat, and then obviously Neil, you just come in straight afterwards. But the semi-final, what was that like being at the game in general? Like, what was the experience?
Well, the build-up was unbelievable. I don't want to talk about the ending because I was, especially when we've gone 1-0 up after flipping 3 or 4 minutes, and we're only 20 minutes away from a World Cup final.
Yeah,
the build-up was brilliant, and obviously when you're over there, the videos that are all coming out of the fans from the quarter final in the bars, in the pubs, in the big sports parks, all the players are seeing all these. They play them on the big screen for everyone to see them. So we're seeing how it's built up from the Panama game, the Tunisia game, all the way through the tournament, and it built up almost to a frenzy. And it's no different for everyone there. They're trying to keep everyone's calm and feet on the ground, but they can't wait. They just want to get out there and play this semi-final. And at the end of the game, it's like, you can just imagine how bad it is when you've just lost, especially when you think you've got half a chance and you're 1-0 up. And it's just one of them things, isn't it?
Yeah.
What was
I agree.
like?
Just surreal for us.
Yeah.
And it was an emotional day anyway, because our wives were fortunate enough to come out to see the game as well. So we'd been away for 6 weeks, so seeing them as well. And I know Pat's younger daughter come out as well. So it was a great experience, but just surreal. We're pinching ourselves. We've watched these massive World Cup games. I think 78 was probably my World Cup I remember. And I don't know what Pat's was, but I would have to say, I don't know if Pat agrees as well, after the game in the dressing room is the lowest and quietest I've ever known a dress. In fact, I didn't really know what to do. It's mine, even though we've just lost, the show's got to go on and we've still got to empty the dressing room and do our job. We was frightened to make a noise, wasn't we, Pat? We had the boot steamer, we wheel across the floor. We actually said, let's lift it because we didn't want to make any sort of noise whatsoever. Nobody wanted to speak, did they?
No, it stayed quiet.
Just didn't know what to say.
No, it stayed quiet for about 30 minutes, just nothing. The odd little word here and there, the odd nod of the head, and the head coach is gutted, the assistant coach, everyone is just devastated. Because we thought we got half a chance. Well, we had got half a chance. Mm. And how the euphoria from the quarter-final and the fourth round game, this was like, it was horrible. And you're right, I've done a lot of dressing rooms and it was really, really, it was like almost eerily quiet, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Bear in mind there's 50 people, 50 lads inside this dressing room.
And
like Neil says, we've got to now pack up. We've got to get everything sorted because the following morning, within 24 hours, 14 hours, we got to pack up. We've got to get the stuff ready to go back home. So we can't sit around and mope around. We've got to get it sorted.
Who was the first to speak then? Who kind of broke the ice? Was it Gareth or?
No, it might have been someone like one of the medicals. Anybody fancy an ice bath? It was just, one of them. Fucking ice bath. It would have been something like that.
The thing is as well, though, we've reacted so well to that. I mean, the Nations League, I know, obviously, we lost to Holland, I think it was, but bloody hell, we beat some decent teams on the way to getting there. And again, we spoke before, if the Euros had gone ahead this month, last month, for me, it would have been the first time since probably 96 where I would have genuinely felt, to coin a phrase, that it was coming home. We've responded really, really well. I suppose my final question would be, and obviously I'll go with you first, Neil, and then you, Pat. But from what you know, how excited are you for England moving forward, and what do you think we can achieve?
Can't wait. Exactly the same as you. I thought we had a great chance in the summer, and I hope we haven't missed it. It might work in our favour because I know Harry Kane and people like that were a little bit of a doubt, wasn't they? So, all the clouds could be aligning, or the stars aligning, as I say, and you never know. It might just be that sort of luck we needed. And the under-17s, like Pat said, won the World Cup, so their players might have matured a little bit more as well. So, it might have done us a favour, but I'm definitely confident that we've got a great chance.
Yeah, same. What about you, Pat?
Yeah, and I don't like to moan about football and COVID because I know there's people a lot worse off than us with what's happened with COVID and football. But when it all came about and you knew the Euro was going to get cancelled, it was like was devastating because we couldn't wait to get there. You know, there's 40 members of staff who are dying to get there. There's 25 players, 30 players dying to get there. But like Neil said now, the one or two that might break through from the under-21s, from that squad that won the World Cup at 17 under-20s, that might be the little piece that's missing. You just don't know.
Yeah. Because it's going to be
like I said, we can't wait to see the next squad, actually.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. You've got like the likes of Hudson-Odoi you're breaking through and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's just embarrassment of riches. Just fingers crossed we can go the next step. But lads, thanks so much. Incredibly interesting and great to go over obviously 2 great summers with the Women's World Cup and obviously Russia as well. Fingers crossed next time we chat we can be discussing a trophy as well. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, though. Appreciate it.
All right, pal. Thank you.
Cheers, pal. Not a problem.
Bye.